The next story of the day is about Syria. In Aleppo, Syria, there were chemical attacks, hundreds of people injured in government-controlled Aleppo. Sorry, I just wanted to breathe off camera. I didn't want it to look weird or creepy, but so Aleppo, Syria, if you guys remember, there was like so much propaganda coming out of there from the news. It used to be controlled by terrorist organizations. If you remember, there were like little kids that were like dirty. There was actually a little boy that was like propped up. He was all dirty and bleeding. It actually came out that the father of that boy said that his son was being used for political gain. So CNN used this kid and said, look at this kid. Like, oh my, the same thing they're doing with Mexico. That's what I'm saying to people. They've done this so many times. It's like, it's hard for me to fall for it. I'm not mean or uncompassionate. I just know how they operate. So they used a picture of this kid, but the father said, no, we support the government. So CNN used the kid and said, we have to attack the government of Syria. They're doing bad stuff. And the father said, no, that's my kid. We support the government. We don't support you. They've done this before. Once Trump got into office, they defunded the rebel group. So in Syria, you had a government of Bashar al-Assad. Regardless of what you think of him, he was controlling Syria. And the United States and other countries were funding rebel groups to try to overthrow the government of Syria. They literally started a civil war in Syria by funding the opposition. It's really crazy stuff. I mean, imagine if they did that here. Well, they are kind of trying to do it here on the low. It's just not as easy in the United States. But they were trying to overthrow Syria. Trump gets in, cuts a $2 billion program of funding rebels. Trump did that. He cut the funding that the CIA was funding rebels. And all of a sudden now Aleppo goes from being controlled by terrorist organizations to being controlled by the government. Syria is almost completely free of terrorist organizations and rebels who were trying to take over. So now in Aleppo, hundreds of people were injured. And here, this is coming directly from CNN. I mean, this stuff is so obvious, it's ridiculous. CNN said, it's not clear who carried out the attack, but Syria's state agency quoted a local commander blaming terrorist groups. So you know that it was terrorist groups or rebel groups when even CNN won't tell you that it's not. They say, oh, we don't know who did the chemical attack in Syria this time. And then they said later, we got to investigate it. You know, there's activist groups investigating it. This is totally contrary to last time when there was a chemical attack. You had CNN immediately, you had Jake Tapper, all of them immediately saying, this chemical attack came from the rebels. I'm sorry, this chemical attack came from the Syrian government. We need to attack the Syrian government. We need to attack the Syrian government. They said that the day that the chemical attacks happened last time. There was little to no evidence on that either. There were a lot of people saying that this whole thing was staged or like it was coming from rebel groups, but that's what they do. And I guess now they don't really have an agenda in Syria. Maybe it's all but over. Because when someone gets attacked with chemicals now, they're like, maybe it was the rebels, maybe it was the terrorist groups. We don't know, we'll investigate. When have you ever heard them try to investigate something and not just immediately tell you how to feel? Did they say that at the border of Mexico? Did they say, oh, we're not sure if they threw rocks or they threw weapons at the military, that's why they got gassed. We're going to investigate and we'll let you know in a week whether they were gassed like justly or they just randomly got gassed. Of course they don't do that because they don't want you to know the truth. In Tijuana, the reason that they got gassed was because hundreds of people broke through the border and were throwing projectiles and injuring. I mean, you could kill someone with a rock. You don't think I could, people say, oh, it's just a rock. Give me a heavy rock. I could throw 70, 80 miles an hour. See if I can't kill somebody. I don't want to, obviously. I'm a very peaceful person. But if you say you can't kill someone with a rock, apparently you don't know anybody who could throw a baseball because it's very heavy and you could throw things very fast. I mean, people have died with rocks, David and Goliath, classic story. But anyway, I just want to say with Syria, chemical attack, probably the rebel group that was literally being funded by the U.S. government and others before Trump got into office. This is why I like Trump. He's not perfect. I don't think he's got all the answers, but he did cut the funding to these rebel groups. And these rebel groups in, I don't know that they're the same ones, but in Libya, they funded rebels, killed Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, left a power vacuum for extremists, and then slave trade and organ harvesting came to that region via terrorist groups. These rebels are extremist Islamists. Like literally, my friend who lives in Syria says, dude, they put kids in the front of cages and just like cut people's heads off and stuff. They're savages. This is who these people are. So I don't understand why we were funding extremist groups. It really doesn't make sense to me. And if you really look at what was going on before Trump got into office, there's a lot of talk, a lot of fluff, a lot of lies, a lot of pretty, oh, we love the kids and we love the gays. Like, yeah, me too. I love my gay and lesbian friends. But just because you legalize gay marriage doesn't mean you should drop 26,000 bombs in 7 different countries and no improvements. It's not like you're dropping bombs and like terrorist groups are disappearing. That's what people say. Oh, Trump's dropping a lot of bombs too. I'm not saying it's great, but when Trump's dropping bombs, he's actually making progress. ISIS is all but eliminated in Iraq, in Syria. Like, they're not there anymore. So it's like, at least when he's dropping bombs, once again, I'm not advocating for bombs, but there's clear progress that's made in Syria. Talk to Syrians if you don't think there's progress made in Syria. When Obama was dropping all these bombs, it was getting worse. Like, everything was getting worse. Every region they went to literally got worse and turned into a terrorist haven. And then they took in all these people into Europe, and Europe got worse. During Obama, with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, Libya got worse, Syria got worse, Iraq got worse, and Europe got worse. And the United States what got better? Nothing got better. They legalized gay marriage to put a wool over our eyes so we didn't pay attention to this stuff. And what they did in Syria is absolutely disgusting. Their whole plan kind of fell apart, and now you know it is because a chemical attack happened. Do you see this one politicized? Are they screaming women and children? No, because they already have their mental manipulation of the week, and it's the Tijuana, Mexico situation, which is collapsing as well because they used a staged picture. It's obvious. That's going to be the last story. Before I get into that, I just want to talk about